Welcome everyone to the Brooklyn Book Festival 2021 program, Who Knew? This is our program every year. We shine the light on debut authors that we would encourage you to read. We don't want you to miss these authors and their new books. We review dozens and dozens of debut books, review them and read them to make these selections. And it's very exciting. This year is a little bit different with the hybrid festival we're having, where we have 3 of the 6 here on this program virtually on our global stage, and live and at the festival we have 3 other of the debut who could actually get across borders and get into town and could make it to be with us live. The 3 ones that are live at the festival are The City of Good Death by Priyanka Champaneri, The Playwright's House, that's by Dario Suarez, The Thousand Crimes of Ming Chao by Tom Lin. And as I said, they're at our live and in-person festival. But with us now are the 3 authors from around the world. And first we're going to hear from Colleen Van Niekerk and A Conspiracy of Mothers, which is a wonderful book. Without further ado, Colleen.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So again, you can pronounce my name Colleen Van Niekerk or Colleen Van Niekerk, which is how it's said in South Africa, which is where I'm originally from. Either one is okay. Again, I think as Carolyn mentioned, this is my debut. It's set in my native country, which is South Africa. That's not where I live at the moment. I live in Vancouver, Canada, which is sort of all the way on the other end of the spectrum. The journey towards producing this book took, I sort of stopped counting after a decade, but it took some time to formulate the story, the characters, and it's very much a reflection on South African life and the period in particular that I was growing up and coming of age as the country went through some major transitions. So it was sort of a view of the country with with the particularities of what it was like living there, but also just a reflection of some of the things that are still very much present in South African life that are there today, as an introduction for those who may not be familiar with the country. So without further ado, I'll read a couple things from the outset. So this book is written across different points of view. The first chapter is in the point of view of the protagonist, who is a woman called Yolanda. And when we meet her, she is not in South Africa. She is in the Appalachians, actually in northern Virginia. Night has no color. It has smell, taste, flickering visuals. It is not a void, but a time when the presence of other things pushes forward. Darkness sets upon Yolanda, heavy and tight as a vice. Weary, she knows that she will always face the night alone, no matter who is in the room, who is in her bed. Yet fear rises in her like bile, for this night brings more with it than shadows. Come home, the voice said, the one she heard after she closed her eyes and lay down on her bed. It was Ma's voice again, wafting in on the wind that raised the tattered net curtain of Yolanda's bedroom like a hand. 2 words drifting in with the scent of fresh rain and wet soil, with the sound of horses neighing in the nearby stables. Rachel, her mother, was beckoning her away from this Virginia hamlet and back to Cape Town's unforgiving shore, as if an absence of 18 years was nothing at all. These 2 words had come over several weeks now, straining Yolanda's worn spirit, where it felt held together by rusted rivets, pushing at the tight, painful places within her. The core left her in agony. It illuminated the shards of her broken heart that she'd so carefully papered over. An insomniac accustomed to resting in the security of daylight, she was finding herself too disturbed to get much sleep at all. Fatigued, she looked up at the ceiling of her bedroom before drifting into an unsettled half-sleep, but a cluster of ghouls sat at the periphery of her mind. Exhaustion had drained her of the world to keep them at bay. They were ready to prey again. Then it came like a switch, the sound of a belt buckle. Her heart began to race. The shadows at the foot of her bed grew deeper, darker. The belt belonged to Garrick, her boyfriend. He had come in from the stables into her bathroom. Garrick was a safe harbor for her. Yet to Yolanda, the sound didn't come from him, not then. Help, she gasped, forming white-knuckled fists with her trembling hands. But the ghouls pushed forward. They were standing over her again, belt buckles loosening, hands reaching. They jostled with each other over who was going to go next. They dragged her present self back into the past with them, forcing her to look where she didn't want to. Night drew her in. Yolanda had no idea how long the flashback went on for. When she came to, she was crouched in a ball near her kitchen door, burrowed against Garrick. Her dog was pacing nearby. His were howling on the porch. Garrick had drawn her back with smile. She exhaled into the familiar scent of his body, hay, horses, and cheap aftershave. It also lit the oil burner. The air was light with the scent of citrus that she loved. You're safe, he was repeating. His long legs were curved inward, his body bent over her like shelter. Yolanda relaxed into his embrace. She swallowed her nausea and released her tears. That's it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Colleen. I just have to say, for anyone who's hearing her read this little bit, it is a saga of a family, and it's very beautiful. Thank you for reading that. I'd like to introduce now Elizabeth Gonzalez James, and if you would please read from Monette C. and perhaps tell us a little bit about your debut experience.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to the Brooklyn Book Festival. Yeah, my book is called Monette at Sea, and it's a dark comedy set during the Great Recession about a young woman who gets a job right out of college on Wall Street, only to get there on her first day and realize that her job has been eliminated due to the wider panic on Wall Street. And she has to move back in with her parents in Tucson and basically figure out what she's going to do with the rest of her life. And it's been a long road to getting this book published. It took me 10 years from first sentence to the book being available in bookstores. It went on submission in 2015 and nobody ended up picking it up. And I put it in a drawer. I wrote a second book. And I kind of gave up on this one for the most part, although I would still send it out every now and again to small presses and contests. And in 2019, I sent it to the SFWP Literary Awards, and to my complete shock, I was named a finalist and they offered me a contract for publication. And so it just came out this year, and I'm really excited that the book is now out in the world. And I'm originally from South Texas, but I live in Massachusetts now. So I'm just going to read a little bit of the first chapter. As I said, it's set during the Great Recession. So this is 2009, and we meet our heroine when she is attending a seminar for job seekers, and she really does not want to be there. Folding chairs are arranged in a semicircle, and I grab the one closest to the door. As I'm chewing on a cuticle and trying to divine shapes in the brown grain of the carpet, a guy about my age sits next to me, and in between guttural attempts to clear his throat, I hear a wet clicking sound that I identify as a tongue ring being wrapped against teeth. Cringing at each thwack, I slouch lower in my seat, hoping he'll take the hint. He doesn't. Hey, he says. I ignore him, so he tries again. Hey, and he jabs an elbow into my arm. Do I know you? He asks. I look at him without blinking, but undaunted, he tries again. Did you go to Marana, class of '02? No, I say, I didn't go to Marana. Do you know Pokey, Worm's little brother? Did you used to party over at their place? Or the Pita Pit? Did you used to work at Pita Pit? I sit up straight and face him, too under-caffeinated and overstressed to continue this line of questioning. I don't know you, I say. I don't know Pokey or Worm or the place where they used to party. but he only shakes his head and sits back in his chair, pulling out his phone. Nah, dude, he says, I know you. I'ma figure it out. Don't worry. Mercifully, the door opens and an older woman with orange fluffy hair and red paisley pants strides in and asks us to sit down. My seat companion pockets his phone and I resume chewing my cuticle, praying we won't have to give introductions. Welcome, job seekers, says the woman with a smile. My name is Paulette. Before we get started this morning, I want to give you one piece of advice. She reaches for a binder under her chair and removes a piece of paper, the word breathe written across it in black marker. She holds it forth like the 11th commandment and nods while we take in the power of her message. I want to tell you that I know where you're coming from. I was a legal secretary for 17 years, but got laid off after a merger. I searched high and low for another job, but at my age, and here she points to her head, so we can all see her gray roots and know she's deliberately chosen carrot-colored hair. At my age, it's hard to convince employers to take a chance on you. So I started coming to church, and here I tune out for a while. I told my mom this meeting was a thin ruse to pack the pews on Sunday, but she wouldn't listen. And Jesus led me here, and I've been running these workshops for the last 3 years. Paulette finishes her spiel with a quick glance heavenward and says, now, let's get to know one another, shall we? The other job seekers stand one by one, give their name and sad situation, laid off, downsized, restructured, redundant. The day I started my senior year at the University of Arizona, France's largest bank halted withdrawals from 3 of its biggest funds, citing fears about a looming subprime mortgage crisis, effectively setting the stage for the Great Recession. How's that for a bad omen? As my turn to speak approaches, I consider running, but I only have 2 dimes in my purse. Where would I go? Tongue Ring is next. He's wearing Pumas and the kind of denim pants that inhabit the strange, unnamed sartorial category between shorts and capris. His goatee tapers into a thin line that connects with his sideburns, and though he's dressed in athletic apparel, he looks no stranger to the Taco Bell drive-thru. What's up? He says. I'm Chasen. I work at Safeway. I used to do sheet metal fabrication, but I got fired. Here, he pantomimes smoking a joint. I like working on cars, and I guess I'm a people person. He looks at me and winks, and I'm so appalled I can't even roll my eyes. I shouldn't be here. This feels too much like accepting defeat. I can't shake the image that somewhere in lower Manhattan there's a building full of desks, and on one of those desks is a little brass and falsewood nameplate that says Mona Morellis. It's my turn. I rise and face the room. Besides Chasen, I'm the youngest by at least 20 years, and looking down at my flip-flops and the Princess Jasmine t-shirt I slept in, I think the age difference is apparent to everyone else in the room too. My name is Mona Morellis, I say. 8 months ago, I graduated from University of Arizona with a major in finance. I got recruited out of college to work at an investment bank in New York, but that kind of fell through, so here I am. My heart is clanging so hard I can see it rising and falling under the swoop of Princess Jasmine's bubble braid. Since September, I've spoken only to my parents, my brother, and my best friend Ashley. Even the guy at the liquor store and I have worked out a system of grunts and head jerks. 30 unblinking eyes are making me bury my fingernails sharp into my palms as sweat trails down my sides. I can see the panic attack like it was a freight train, and me, my feet wedged between the rails. I suck in a breath and hold before letting it out slowly, trying not to look like I'm practicing Lamaze. Which bank? Paulette asks. My face reddens. Bannerman, I say, addressing the floor. There's a murmur. One woman whistles and lets out a low shit. Paulette tisks, and I can practically hear her face fall in pity. Truly, my story is the saddest of them all. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I just have to say that when I read that book, there were parts where I just laughed out loud, and there were parts you just wanted to weep for her, you know? But I'll let you all read that yourself. And now I'd like to introduce our next debut author with her wonderful book, The Theory of Flight. We have Sipiwe Gloria Ndlovu. I'm hoping I'm doing justice to the pronunciation, but she will also self-introduce and take it away.
Okay. Thank you to the Brooklyn Book Festival. My name is Pierre Gloria Ndlovu. I'm the author of The Theory of Flight. This is the South African version of the cover. The book debuted in South Africa in 2018 and debuted in America, in the United States, in 2021. I'm currently in Johannesburg, South Africa, but I'm originally from Zimbabwe. And the book, although set in an unnamed country, sort of details the past 40 years of Zimbabwean history. Yes, so this is the first of a series of interconnected novels. And I'm currently working on the fourth of those novels. It took me 10 years to write this one, which is, you know, it seems like it's a very normal thing given the panel. So I'm very pleased that it came out in 2018, and then I've been able to write quite a few books since then. But yeah, so this is the first of a series, and I'm very proud to introduce The Theory of Flight. I'll read from the prologue, which is very short, but gives you a sense of the novel and the tone of the novel. So I'll go ahead and read from the prologue. On the 3rd of September, not so long ago, something truly wondrous happened on the Beaufort farming estate. At the moment of her death, Imogen Zulanyoni, Jeannie, was seen to fly away on a giant pair of silver wings. And at the very moment, her heart calcified into the most precious and beautiful something the onlookers had ever seen. A few had already been chosen to witness this event. However, most of you have eyes that are not for beauty to see. And because of this, you will not believe that such a truly amazing phenomenon did take place. It is because some of you will have doubt, and those of you who do not have doubt will be curious that this story is choosing to be told. Like any event, what happened to Jeannie did not happen in a vacuum. It was the result of a culmination of genealogies, histories, teleologies, epistemologies, and epidemiologies, our ways of living, remembering, seeing, knowing, and dying. In other words, the story of what happened to Jeannie on the Beaufort farming estate on the 3rd of September is also the story of how her grandfather, in a bid to quench his wanderlust, walked into the Indian Ocean, of how Prudence Goma, her grandmother, learned how to build character, of how Golita Gumede, her father, shot down an airplane and in so doing, pitted a race of angels, of how Elizabeth Nyoni, her mother, sealed her fate with her turn of her ankle, of how Dingani Masuku came to be haunted by the blue-violet flowers on his mother's dress, of how Thandi Hadebe looked into the distance as though it held a future in which she was not particularly interested, of how Crystal Masuku at puberty welcomed guilt as a constant companion, of how Marcus Masuku for Marcus Masuku, love happened under a jacaranda tree while he was listening to a story about swimming elephants, of how Valentine Tanaka became a hunchback with a heart of gold, and of how Jesus came to be saved, and of how the Beaufort farming estate knew exactly what to do with its sacrificed darlings. Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, there's a large cast of characters there, but I can tell you as you read through it, you just get caught up in all their enmeshed stories. I want to thank these three of our Who Knew debut authors for 2021. As I said, dozens of books are read and reviewed to choose these particular debuts. And as readers, I would encourage everyone now and then to just like salt and pepper your reading list of your icons and your favorites with some of these debut books and authors. Thank you all very much.